What could the world look like if we connected all of the individuals, organizations, and institutions that are trying to make it a better place? Some 2 years ago, we got to do a research project for one Ministry of Environment. It was a small one, but important nevertheless, because it made us think about a bigger idea. See, as a part of the research, we had to ask a question. Who is it for? Who are the stakeholders? And that answer, it wasn't clear. So we zoomed out a little bit and we asked again, who are the ministry's stakeholders? Do we know them? Do we know what they need? And again, that answer was not clear. Then, for the third time, we had a chance to ask a representative of a group of countries whether they know who the stakeholders are. And for the third time, that answer wasn't clear. And that has set us out on a journey of exploration. I'm a sociologist and an explorer, and I've spent the last 10 or so years traveling around the world from a country to country, from place to place, meeting people from many different walks of life. And because of what I did, I got to ask people questions, sometimes very intimate questions about their realities and circumstances, and I would get very honest answers. Now, one of the places I got to visit on my journeys was a beautiful big ocean state of Palau. We worked with the community, we played with the kids. It was beautiful. And as a part of that collaboration, we ended up working on a documentary film with the president of Palau, Serangel Whips Jr. At one point, we found ourselves on the grounds of the United Nations headquarters in New York City, recording an interview with the president. And he said something quite disturbing. If we lose our islands, we lose our language, we lose our culture, and we lose our heritage. You see, that's something that really stuck with me because there I was standing face to face with someone who was responsible for the future of a nation, future of a culture that was under an imminent threat from certain environmental shifts that they themselves have not caused. And it got me wondering if there is anything we can do to prevent that loss. Well, if we pull back from Palau and look at the world as a whole, we find out that the situation is no different. It's just a different shape and a different form of the same challenges. At the moment, 1 out of 3 natural sites and 1 out of 6 cultural sites is under that imminent threat. And the word I want you to pay attention to is actually not the statistic, it's the word currently. Because even if we stopped and everything that we're doing wrong on this planet, and I mean everything, right now, it would still take it decades or centuries in some cases for things to start to get better. Now, the reason for that is because we've crossed something called planetary boundaries. Designed by the Stockholm Resilience Center in 2009, they identified 9 different biological limits beyond which we should not venture. But already in 2009, we've crossed 3 out of 9 of those. Then that framework was refined and redesigned again, and by 2023, we've crossed 6 out of 9 of those accounts. There's another statistic for you. It's called the World Overshoot Day. It's a day each year where humanity's need for ecological resources surpasses or goes beyond what the planet can regenerate every single year. Do you know what day that was this year? July 25th. That means that before the end of the 7th month of this year, we already started to reach into our planetary savings accounts. Now, that statistic says quite a lot because our planetary capacity is too low to sustain the lifestyle of humanity. And it's just like a regular savings account. If you take out too much for too long, it could run out. And we've been taking out too much since 1971. Now, The United Nations has designed their framework to address these challenges, called the Sustainable Development Goals. It's 17 different targets covering a broad range of topics, from education to poverty to the environment. Launched in 2015 to be reached by 2030, they were a guidance for us to reach a sustainable future. Okay? Now, we're 10 years into this. So how did we do? Are we progressing? Are we on a right path? Well, as of September 12th, 2025, that is a week ago, the latest report tells us that we're just about 18% on track to meet those goals. And some of them are actually receding. Now, it is said that we have everything that we need to achieve those goals. We have the knowledge, the money, the people, the solutions. Everything's already out there. We even have the goals and know where to go. Then how is it possible that we've only progressed so little? I did a little bit of research, and I found out that right now there's around 359 million companies around the world. And it got me wondering, how many of those are actually focused on impact or making the world a better place in some shape or form? Well, it turns out there is no conclusive statistic that would give me the answer. But, a little bit more research, I found out there's around 10 million social enterprises. There's quite a few nonprofits, and if we add up the philanthropies and the impact funds, all of it all together, we land at around 5%. So, again, that statistic says it all. We have 5% trying to make up for the gaps of the 95% that don't put humanity or the planet first. And our collective capacity to address our social and environmental challenges is too low. And our planetary legacy is at stake. So, situation is not getting better. Resources to address those challenges are getting thinner. Our planet is already stretched thin. People are slow to change, and policies, they're even slower. Now, we need to rethink and reimagine how we're addressing these challenges in a new, collective, and systemic way. How can we address those challenges if we don't know exactly how much capacity or power we have to address them? If we don't know who those addressing those challenges are? How can we define and design policies to support them if we don't know what they need? We need to unite the organizations and the solutions all together. We need to scale up our defense mechanisms against the damage that we ourselves are causing to this planet to take effective action. The economic theorist Peter Drucker once said, if you can't measure it, you can't improve it. And after the research project we did for the Ministry of Environment, we started to wonder and imagine, speculate what a potential solution to that could look like. Now, we think that it all starts with a big ecosystem map. And since we live in a pretty unique day and age right now where most things, and this is a generalization, most things in our social sphere are connected by the internet, and since all the solutions and organizations and everything's already out there, all we have to do is find them, collect them, and then make them available, right? We started to do that, and we started to collect them little bit by little bit. And it didn't take long for us to realize that it takes an immense amount of time, especially if you don't know where to look. And even with the latest search tools and everything we could find, we weren't making a dent. So, okay, we had to redesign the process, and so we did. And we automated it. Well, then another problem came because we realized that more information doesn't necessarily mean better. We realized that there's a surprisingly low threshold where the volume of information becomes too cumbersome rather than helpful. So there we were, back to square one. We had to reimagine how to navigate that volume, and so we did. We built our own search engine, trained on impact taxonomy. To put it simply, a search engine that just understood the context of what we're searching for a little bit better. But the problem persisted because it wasn't giving us the kind of understanding and relevance to the needs to address what we were searching for. There we were, back to square one once again. And we realized one thing, that if we really want to understand this ecosystem, if we want to bring that relevance forward, we need to understand the relationships between the different pieces, how they relate to one another, how they can support each other. That's where we discovered graph technology. And from that came the solution. We designed a metric called the synergy index. It's a way of analyzing information about organization A and then comparing that to organization B. The overlap between them is the synergy score on a scale from 0 to 1 that indicates a certain collaborative potential or knowledge-sharing potential between them. All of a sudden, we could start to look at ecosystems in a completely new way, because we can start to imagine different ways in which these pieces are connected, the different thematic and geographic overlaps. We could start to look for ways in which they could support each other. They could build each other's capacities. Now, this principle works on a small scale, but it can scale up to millions. And if we were able to do this, if we were able to build this impact ecosystem map, then it would allow us to have an evidence base with which we can support policy design to be more effective. We could streamline the flow of resources to those that need them the most. We could accelerate the flow of information to where it's needed. And perhaps we can scale up our collective action to address the biggest challenges. Now, to put this simply, if we can align our solutions around the world's most pressing challenges, we would enable a collective synergy of effective action. If we could share that knowledge with each other, with everyone, then we would unleash a multiplier effect of collective problem solving. Individual efforts would no longer be siloed, but networked, and we would move from fragmented responses to a coherent planetary strategy. There is a new way of addressing and scaling impact in ways that wasn't possible before, in a way that the planet needs right now, and in a way that perhaps may allow us to restore a planetary equilibrium once again. But we're not working on different ways of applying this with different institutions and organizations around the world. But the important thing I want to leave you here with is that we can all do this every single day. Just think, and I invite you to, later on today or next time you talk to someone, think how something that you know may benefit them. That little piece of knowledge that you hold could be something that changes their life forever, or better. It will allow them to design something that will change the rest of everybody else's. So, please, let's co-design a better future together, and let's start by sharing more knowledge with each other. Thank you.